an obscure reference, isn't it?
So obscure. Sorry. Hi, everybody. Coming up next, we are going to discuss on-property hotels versus off-property hotels on this edition of the Diz Unplugged. This is the Diz Unplugged, episode 773 for the week of February 3rd, 2015. The Diz Unplugged is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel, experts at helping you plan the perfect Disney vacation. Visit them on the web at www.dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show, coming to you live from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends John Magi, Kevin Close, Tyler Allen.
Hey.
Kathy Whirling. Back in the production nook, our producer Dustin West, along with associate producer Craig Williams and Rhino Clavin. So welcome to the show, everybody. I offered to host this particular segment this week for Dustin because I guess I know more about the hotels.
Yeah. You want to make sure there's no fist fight?
So it's also something I enjoy talking about because there's so much to discuss when it comes, especially off property, and it's something that I've been doing for a long time. So I think there's a lot that we can discuss, a lot of information that we can share that will help people in terms of making that decision. Now, last week we did a poll, and we asked whether or not you would consider staying off-site. It was no surprise. 59% of you said, no, you are Disney all the way. 26% said maybe if the price was right. 15% said you often stay off-site. And I think the first thing I want to do is just kind of explain when I say off-site what it is I mean. Excuse me. There are different areas surrounding Walt Disney World that we look at when we think about off-site hotels. You have the Lake Buena Vista area, which is the area, technically the town that Disney is in is called Lake Buena Vista. And this includes Hotel Plaza Boulevard. Now, they call them the Seven Sisters, those 7 hotels that exist on Hotel Plaza Boulevard. Don't ask me to name them, although I probably could. But those are called the official hotels of Walt Disney World. They are not Disney-owned, but they are probably have the closest relationship with Disney of any hotels in the area. Some of them have a lot of the perks. I shouldn't say some of them. Very few of them, actually.
I think the Hilton's the only one.
The Hilton's the only one that has early entry and some of the other perks associated with being on site. But they are considered official hotels of Walt Disney World. Just outside of Hotel Plaza Boulevard, which is that road that leads right into downtown Disney, you have a number of hotels in that area, especially back over on Palm Parkway, which is where you have a large number of suite hotels that seem to be very, very popular over there. But you also have the Marriott World Center. You have Buena Vista Suites, one of our sponsors. It's a great hotel. You have the Nickelodeon Kid Suites is over there as well. Then you have the Kissimmee area, which is Highway 192. Earl Bronson Highway is also what it's called. And the Kissimmee area hotels tend to be less expensive. It's a little further away. Highway 192 is also referred to locally as the Concrete Jungle. It is not exactly, I'm not going to say it's run down or anything. There are sections of it that are. But, it's just, there are a lot of buildings. There's a lot of buildings, a lot of restaurants, a lot of hotels. But there are also places that are right off of 192 that you would never guess, and I want to make special mention of Dreams Villas, John's vacation homes.
Correct. I want to talk about 192 for a minute. They just are going through a revitalization project. Some of the area is actually quite beautiful. They're redoing much of 192 right around the 535 Disney area.
It's called the beautification.
Improved with links, bus routes and things like that, so easy transportation. Dreams Villas is about 5 miles from Disney property, give or take where you want to enter 8 miles from the main entrance, 5 miles from back by downtown Disney, and we offer 3 and 4 bedroom vacation homes. So if you're looking for a home rather than a hotel room, come to us.
And
All
it's
right.
very easy to get to Disney property from your.
Yes, it is.
I think
Very
so.
quick. Very quick. So you have the Kissimmee area, and then you also have International Drive. And International Drive technically really is broken up into 3 sections. You have the section closest to Disney property, which is kind of right behind the premium outlets and where Buena Vista Suites is. A lot of timeshare units are back there. This is right up near SeaWorld. And what is that road that cuts through in front of SeaWorld?
Central Florida Parkway.
Central Florida Parkway. So that's the section of Central Florida Parkway after SeaWorld or before SeaWorld, depending on which way you're going. Between Central Florida Parkway and Kirkman Road, you have what's known as Plaza International. And that's where the convention center is. The Rosen Hotel is there. The Peabody, I think it is. Several other hotels. Lots of really cool restaurants. Cafe Tutu Tango, which I love, is over there. There's a Bahama Breeze over there.
Point Orlando.
Point Orlando is there, which is some great shopping and dining.
And in my mind, probably the best movie theater in Orlando.
It's the largest IMAX movie theater in Central Florida.
Yeah.
I think, too. Or in Florida, period, I think.
And this is a good section, a good place to stay if you want something that's kind of right between Universal and Disney. Very easy to get to Disney from there, very easy to get to Universal from there. And a lot of people that are splitting their stay, or even a lot of people that are staying at want to go to Universal. Plaza International, that section, is not too bad. There's some very good hotels there.
They are beautiful. The problem with that area is when there's a convention in
It's
town,
very crowded.
It's a parking lot.
It's very crowded. Then you have the area of International Drive on the other side of Kirkman, and that's an area I simply don't recommend. This is on the other side of Wet n Wild, and it's just not a nice area. It's not dangerous. It's just not nice. The hotels are run down, most of them. Some of them have, I think there's one exception to that is Coco Key, which is a hotel and water park in one. Fairly nice rooms, and I know a lot of money has been spent rehabilitating it. At one point, it was not a nice place, but I haven't been over there in a little while, so I don't know the state of it now.
The Rosen hotels along there, the Rosen Domed hotels are nice also.
But that's also on Plaza International.
But they're also on the other side. There are Rosen hotels.
Oh, that's right. That's right. There
along
is.
the problem is it's a tacky tourist corridor.
Very bad.
The hotels sit a block off that road, but you still have to go through there.
There's a lot of tacky
You can get
tourist
5
stuff.
T-shirts for $10 kind of thing. Pet live alligators.
So those are the main areas when I talk about staying off-site that I'm discussing. Obviously, the biggest draw for staying on property is the convenience, the services that Disney offers, and they have gotten very good in recent years at drawing people away from staying off-site. With the, obviously the All-Stars were built for that specific purpose. Pop Century, I remember when Pop Century opened, there were a number of hotels, especially on 192, that closed because it just took too much business away when you open that many rooms. Art of Animation has drawn people away.
There was a great big thing between Disney and Osceola County. And I don't know if you know this or not, but they had the Pop Century, I believe, has 1,192 rooms. They did that sort of as a slap.
And yeah, Disney definitely has had an impact on Highway 192 in particular, but I think in general, all of the hotels, off-site hotels in the area. But what it did do was it forced the hotels that survived to lower their rates. So that, again, that's the point of competition, is that it does drive down prices. Disney gets away with charging more because you are, quote unquote, on site, and there are all the perks that go along with being a Disney guest, not the least of which is transportation. And this is where, and you know what, I should also mention when I talk about Lake Buena Vista, I'm sorry, let me backtrack just a second. When I talk about Lake Buena Vista, I'm remiss to not mention Bonnet Creek, the Bonnet Creek Resort area. This is where there's a Wyndham back there. There's a Wyndham timeshare that also rents as hotel rooms, which I hear is stunning. There's the Hilton Bonnet Creek, which is, I'm not a huge fan of Hilton's. This is a gorgeous hotel, and the rooms are gorgeous.
An incredible location.
Incredible location.
You see pretty much every firework on property.
You can, absolutely.
From this hotel.
Along with probably one I think I can safely say, in terms of off-property hotels, best pool. Best pool. The Lazy River is awesome. It's a great pool. And right next door is the Waldorf Astoria. And it's a Waldorf Astoria, not part of the Waldorf collection. It's a Waldorf Astoria. It's the only other Waldorf Astoria outside of New York City. And it's an amazing, beautiful, beautiful hotel. And
that's where Bull and Bear is.
And that's where the Bull and Bear is. We had an amazing meal there not too long ago. And one of the things I tell people, Waldorf, because that name, people hear Waldorf and they're not even going to look at it. They figure it's going to cost too much money. There, it is not unusual to find rooms at the Waldorf less expensive than at that Hilton that's next door. That Hilton fills up. And like all hotels, they yield their rates. So the more full the hotel is, the higher the rates go on the remaining rooms. So there are often times where the Hilton is at 75, 80, 85% occupancy. So maybe the rate for that room is $279 a night, whereas the Waldorf might be at 45% occupancy, and their room's going to be at $199 a night. I've seen it happen multiple times. So if you're looking in the Bonnet Creek area, and you should always, always, always compare the Waldorf, because you can, on select dates, it all depends on occupancy, but sometimes you absolutely can find a lower rate at a Waldorf, and it's a Waldorf, and it's incredible. So we talk about staying on site and the perks. Obviously, you get things like early entry. Big one is the Disney transportation. And this is where Disney kills a lot of the hotels off-site, because even the best of them can't match every 15 minutes. I know people can complain about Disney transportation, but generally speaking, the buses run every 15 minutes going from the resorts to the theme parks, downtown Disney, transportation and ticket center. Whereas off-site, what you're looking at in terms of transportation is, and you'll see the words when you see the advertisements, scheduled transportation, which means we're going to run one, two, or three shuttles in the morning, 1, 2, or 3 shuttles at night. So you're going to go in the morning, you're going to come back at night. If you want to come back in the middle of the day to take a break and go back, you're taking a cab. So one of the things you have to factor in is that when deciding to stay off-site, the price, maybe you're getting the room for half price, but do you have to rent a car?
And then if you do have a car, you're not going to get free parking like you would if you're staying at a Disney resort hotel.
That's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
That's another perk of staying on site is free parking.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to pay that. What is it now? $15?
$17.
$17?
$17 or $18, yeah.
So that's a consideration.
Unless you have an annual pass,
Oh, yeah.
and then you
Right,
get in.
if you have the annual pass. The other perk, a little more generic, but something that I consider is theming, is that atmosphere, that Disney. There's that Disney element to the Disney-owned hotels that not even the best off-site hotels can capture. With, in my opinion, and I know some of you may disagree with me, with one exception, Swan and Dolphin. Now, Swan and Dolphin is in a special category because they are on site. They are right next to the Yacht and Beach Club and the Boardwalk. They're in the same loop around Crescent Lake, walking distance to Epcot. They are both considered deluxe hotels. One is managed by Starwood, the other by Westin. The Swan is Westin, the Dolphin is Starwood. They use the Disney transportation system. They're part of Magical Express, I believe.
No,
No? They were at one point, weren't they?
I'm not sure, but now we just tell people they can walk next door. They had
But they do. I know they do use the Disney transportation system in terms of the buses and the boat launches. To get to the boat launches for Epcot and Hollywood Studios, which you can also walk to. There's the walking path there, and the bus service going everywhere else. And routinely, the price of a room at the Swan Dolphin is significantly less than what you're going to be paying at the yacht, beach, or boardwalk for the same room. Plus, they have those amazing heavenly beds, which are in my opinion, and having traveled quite a bit, the heavenly beds, those Starwood heavenly beds, are the best that are out there. When I'm staying in a Westin or a Sheraton, that's the one thing I'm looking forward to is those beds. And after a day in the theme parks, falling into one of those beds can't be underestimated. So Swan Dolphin is one of the exceptions to that. But generally speaking, off-property, non-Disney owned, it is a crapshoot as to what kind of transportation you're going to get. So you need to factor that in if you're looking at staying off-site.
I used it when Katie was in the college program. I came down 9 times within the year that she was on the program, and I stayed off-site at the Marriott, in the Marriott Village there. So for me, theming was not important. It was being here and being able to go to Disney. So I would say to people, keep that in mind. It's like, what are you here for? Are you here to do, all-day touring in the parks? Then maybe you could stay off-site. To me, I had a car. It didn't make any difference if I was on-site or off-site. I drove myself to the parks anyway. So I saved, what I saved allowed me to come back multiple times.
I think it all depends on how you vacation and what you're looking for. I know I don't like a hotel room. I don't want to sit on my bed and do everything. And I would prefer more space.
Right.
And unless you're a DVC member and can get a 1 or a 2 bedroom, you get a bigger bang for your buck off-site.
Well, this is one of the areas that I want to talk about in terms of where if you're talking about a family of 2, 3, or 4 people staying on site. I understand, the rationale, but the minute you go into that 5th person, all of a sudden now you have some decisions to make because a lot of times you can't put 5 people in a room. There are certain rooms where it's okay. Certain hotels have certain categories of rooms where you can do that. But generally speaking, you need to either go to a quote-unquote home away from home, one of the DVC resorts, the 1-bedroom units, the 2-bedroom units, or Fort Wilderness cabins, or multiple rooms. Either way, what you're looking at is a significant jump in price. So, for example, a 1-bedroom villa at Boardwalk easily run you $500 a night. Whereas off-site, you can get a vacation home. How many and I don't want to turn this into a massive commercial for Dreams Villas, but it's a good example. How many people can sleep?
The 3-bedroom sleeps 8, the 4-bedroom sleeps 10, and we start at $99 a night.
Exactly.
So, significant savings. I do want to also address the transportation versus the driving thing. There are perks to driving your own car. Not only is there the freedom and the flexibility of it, but also you get to go beyond the parks. You're not just locked into Disney property.
Right.
And that's the type of guest that we get. We get the guest who doesn't want to go to Disney 7 days. They go to Disney 3 or 4, and then they head out someplace else.
If you're visiting Disney, staying on site is a good idea.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want to visit Orlando and all it has to offer, and it does, there's a lot to offer. You're an hour and a half from each coast. So, you're within a very short drive to the beaches and things like that. Staying off site is considerably cheaper. The other thing I want to talk about, you made mention of the fact that competition brings the price down. Orlando is a very cheap car rental town.
Can be.
There's a lot of competition.
You've got to do your homework.
Right. Like if you're
Right.
coming Christmas week and you want the minivan, you're probably going to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I find most people, they get a car. If you're getting a compact car or one of those, you can do it for under $100 a week at most times. So if except for holiday weeks when everybody wants to rent a car, but it's usually a very cheap car rental town.
I want to address one more point.
I was just going to say, the Diz has a Hertz discount too. So if you're going to look into saving money on your rental car, the Diz can give you a discount code.
Talked about parking. And people say, well, parking is expensive if I have a car. We talked about the annual pass option. One of the things you can do is if you have a large party, one member of your party can have an annual pass. And that will get you parking in their parking lot for free. But it also gives you discounts on other things like other passes. So that's what a lot of people do. One person will buy an annual pass. Everybody else gets a couple-day pass. You get money off of it. You get discounts.
See, now,
free parking.
I've stayed, even before I moved down here, I stayed equal amounts on-site and off-site. And I'll just be direct and honest. I always preferred on-site. There was something about the Disney mystique and the magic of how Disney themed their hotels, especially when you're looking at places like Port Orleans, Riverside.
Oh, yeah.
When you talk about a moderate resort, I think it is brilliant and completely understandable why that hotel is so popular. You can't underestimate the value of that.
Right.
It's an intangible. It's not, you can't put that on a spreadsheet and put a dollar value on that per se. So paying attention to the importance of that for you, and it's different for everybody. There's no right or wrong way necessarily to do this. It's individual to your family, whether or not staying off-site is right for you. I think in particular where it really comes up is when you have people that need more than one hotel room, because they start taking a look at the price and they say, okay, that's outside my budget. So what are my options? So yes, vacation homes like Dreams Villas is an option. 10 people for roughly $99 a night. That's really hard to pass up. But then there are options like, I've talked about David's DVC rentals on the show before. It's also a sponsor of the show or of the site. And this is where you can, in a very controlled environment, in a very controlled format, you're able to rent other people's DVC points. They're not using them. They give them to David's DVC to rent for them. David's charges a certain amount. I think it varies. I'm not sure exactly what the standard is right now. But you can then get that one-bedroom villa at Old Key West or at Boardwalk or any of the other DVC properties that may have cost you $400 or $500 a night for significantly less. We also have the rent trade board on Disboards.com where people put their own, do it themselves. And I do believe it's a little less. The average price per point is a little less on the rent trade board than it is at David's. But I think the last time I looked, it was about $12 or $13 a point is what it was averaging. So you think about it, if you rent something that needs 150 points for the week at $13 a point, what are you looking at, $1,800 or so? So there are significant savings that way. But a lot of times it's about staying off-site and doing your research. I can recommend, like there's Sheraton Vistana Villages and Sheraton Vistana Resort. The villages over on iDrive, it's amazing.
They're lovely. They're almost homes.
They're gorgeous. And
Something else that's really important when you talk about staying off-site, if you have multiple people in a hotel room, having more than one bathroom in the morning for people to get ready.
Oh, absolutely.
The other thing is...
And a washer and dryer.
Right. Again, we're talking about Dreams Villas. 10 people can stay there. There's 3 bathrooms, and the house was built with a sink and mirror at the end of one hallway so that someone can do their hair or put on their makeup and not tie up a bathroom.
Right.
But what I was going to say was, I know that coming home and having separate space for people after you've spent a long time in the parks, there's a lot to be said for having separate areas of the house for people to just have some downtime.
Right.
Aside from 4 people sleeping on 2 beds with 1 chair.
One of the other perks we didn't talk about staying on property is the My Magic Plus, My Disney Experience. You get to do your ride reservations earlier.
Yes.
Than if you're staying off-site.
You do get to make your Magic Bands are now available for people staying off-site. You have to pay for them.
Right.
But you do get to make your Fast Pass Plus reservations 60 days in advance versus 30, I believe, for off-site. So that's another consideration that you have to play into.
Some of staying on site for me personally was a lot of nostalgic reasoning. Like I was kind of spoiled as a kid. The place we always stayed at was the Polynesian. That's where I stayed every time we went with my mom and my dad. And it's not the same when I'm off site. It also depends on the visit. If I'm with my wife, we're probably going to stay either on site or we're going to stay at a nicer place. If I'm by myself, like this trip, I get the cheapest thing I can find because I'm barely in the hotel room. It's like, as long as it's clean,
The other thing I think, I agree with you. If you're here for a short time, staying on site is a good idea. I get tired of Disney food. I get tired of being held captive. Somebody's disagreeing with me.
How dare you, Disney food?
I like the idea of being able to venture out. I like the idea of having a car.
See, one of the things I think is a perk of staying on site, I think Disney's counter service, especially in the hotels, has gotten dramatically better in the last 5 to 10 years. The ease and convenience of getting that food versus when you're staying off site and you have to drive somewhere, I think is also. Plus, generally speaking, what you're talking about for like breakfast, I think on average about $10 a person for breakfast at the food courts, about $15 to $17 a person for lunch, and maybe about the same, or maybe a little more for dinner. And generally speaking, obviously there are exceptions to every rule, but generally speaking, I've found counter service on property to be very good. To be very good now. It's far better than SeaWorld, far better than Universal when it comes to counter service in particular. Disney's really upped their game in the dining department.
There's some of the off-site hotels, though, that do offer like a breakfast in the morning. Some are a continental breakfast. Some are, I know at that Marriott Village, they had, bacon, eggs, whatever. So you could get a free breakfast. But again,
Buena Vista Suites.
Buena Vista Suites does the free breakfast. Their suites average about $89 a night. And includes a free hot breakfast.
We put Kevin's aunt and her kids in one, and she raved about it.
Yeah, no,
Beautiful big rooms. The breakfast was great.
Put my family there too. So
and it's really.
And I want to be. I want to make sure that I'm doing full disclosure. We do have a financial relationship with Buena Vista Suites, but the reason I have a financial relationship with them is because I like the product, and I will put my family there.
You have to be careful about that. I'm glad you brought that up, the free breakfast thing, because certain places, they'll advertise that it's a piece of toast and a toaster in the corner.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And you have to be if that's a selling point. If that's important for you. If you think, well, I'm going to be saving money on breakfast because it's and then you're dissatisfied, then maybe you should have just gone someplace else.
Or you can rent a place that has a kitchen. Bring some food and have breakfast in the room. That saves money. I think the biggest thing is it's a financial.
Yeah, off property. The decision to stay off property is almost always financial. Right. I think there are people that have, for nostalgic reasons, developed. Over time they stay at the same hotel off site and they just love that hotel, and more power to them. But I think generally speaking, that decision is financial. If the finances aren't the main driver in your decision making process, then you're more likely to stay on site.
I would also say one of the big things is size. But that also ties into the financial aspect. If money's no object, you can rent whatever you want on Disney property. You can rent the grand villas with 3 or 4.
Well, generally speaking, I think hotel rooms off-site tend to be larger than hotel rooms on-site. Disney got into that whole mindset of 315 square feet makes a hotel room, where that did not necessarily translate to the rest of the world.
I think there's enough options now that even unless you really want the lowest rate, where you could stay in a hotel room off-site, the options of condos and timeshares and vacation homes are such that they're competing with a hotel room.
Well, you'll find much bigger accommodations for less than the price of.
Right, and if you wanted a hotel room on Disney property or on 192, off-season you can probably get one in the $39, $49 a night range.
But I would caution. Any hotel room at $39 a night, you better manage your expectations. I don't care what it is. Manage your expectations.
Absolutely.
At $39 a night, I've seen it. I've seen it too many times in this town.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
At $39 hotel rooms, but you're not alone because there are bugs in there with you.
yeah.
So there are some tips that I have if you're considering staying off-site that I would recommend that you do. Number one, TripAdvisor. I swear by TripAdvisor. Just look up Orlando, Florida, and see what hotels are recommended in order of ranking. And it will show you the general price points. If you put your dates in, it will give you specific pricing and availability. And I trust TripAdvisor. The other place to go visit is on Disboards.com. We have the Orlando Hotels and Attractions Forum. A lot of people talk about the places that are trending right now. And oftentimes, that's where you're going to find people talking about the stuff the rest of the world hasn't figured out yet. And
The good and the bad.
the good and the bad.
I find with TripAdvisor, if you take off the top 10% and the bottom 10%, the truth is somewhere in that middle section.
I disagree. Every time I have followed TripAdvisor's recommendations for the top 1 or 2 hotels, they've been dead on the money. Dead on the money. So that's the first place I look, is what's their number 1 hotel. Now, if that's out of my price range, I keep going down until I see something that is. But I absolutely, that's part of doing your research. Like I said, the Orlando Hotels and Attractions Board is another place to do good research. Taking a look, especially if you're talking about parties of 5 or more, considering vacation homes like Dream Villas or David's DVC rentals for DVC points, or the DVC rent trade board that we have on Disboards.com. You were getting ready to say something.
I was just going to say another thing that you might want to consider when you're staying off-site is the traffic from the park to your resort. If you've got young kids that need to take naps, it's very easy to jump on a Disney bus, go back to your hotel. If you're trying to get back to your villa or home or what, again, it's how does that all work for you?
Absolutely. And also, before you automatically dismiss staying on site, do your research first. I think I think there is an audience of people that say, "No, Disney's just too expensive." Well, it is sometimes, but oftentimes you can find good prices depending on time of year. If you travel during value season versus peak season, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes page where all those seasons and the prices at all the hotels.
And like the free dining
listed.
thing. They haven't killed that off, have they?
No.
Yeah,
No.
so that's, I mean, you're not going to get that anywhere.
There's no
Also.
announcement of it for this year, but it's kind of a thing that people come to expect, and we expect Disney will release free dining.
Well-
so again, if you're staying on Disney property and you can eat for free, that's a huge plus to the bottom line.
We're still about a month away from the start of when does free dining happen,
They have just started something
where
excellent.
that starts trending on the boards. Last year it was early May. This past year it was early May when they released it. So, but yeah, now that's a game changer. That's a game changer right there. That free dining. But of course, it's in September. It's when kids go back to school.
Right.
That's why Disney does it.
Yeah.
And they're not
It's
gonna
hurricane season.
Although, knock wood, we've been very
a
fortunate.
great year.
We've had
Do
great
not
several
jinx
years.
us, okay?
I knocked wood. But if you're automatically dismissing staying on site, I would encourage you to do some more research first. That especially where the All Stars are concerned, Pop Century is concerned, these are great alternatives. You can find some really good prices at different times of the year. Don't dismiss on site, especially with the perks. You look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I was even one thing that completely slipped my mind, but over at Universal, Cabana Bay.
I loved
It-
Cabana Bay.
It can have really good rates at times that match everything for Disney. In their family suites, they can sleep up to 6, so there's no issue with that. And so you have to rent a car or take a transportation over to Disney if you wanted to get over there. But it can, whenever they're running great promotions, it can even include park tickets to Universal too. So you can still get to see something even if you don't want to use it.
I say this anecdotally because I haven't researched it recently, but Cabana Bay for a family suite, comparable in size to Art of Animation, half the price of Art of Animation for that
How much
same
did you
family
pay for your
suite.
brother?
My brother stayed there the week after the first week in January, the first weekend in January, and I paid $139 a night.
Was that for a family suite?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of trying to convince my parents to spend some time there on the way to Miami for the cruise.
Talk about nostalgia. This is 1960s beach resort. It's amazing. I
Right
loved
up their
it. I
alley.
fell in love with it.
And I don't want to turn into a commercial for Universal, but Universal offers packages where you can actually transfer between Disney and Universal. So you do a split stay with Disney, they'll come and get you, take you to their property, and then you can
Yeah.
stay
And my
there.
whole
for
point
days.
was just all of Universal's hotels have such a high level of theming the same way as Disney's hotels do. They're different. There's none that are too similar, but they're beautiful in their own right too. And
think
it could
they're
actually
gorgeous.
be a great way to transition into another place.
I have stopped reading chat, but someone in chat asked about pet-friendly resorts. And are all of the resorts at Universal
Everything
pet-friendly?
but
Mhm.
Cabana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Portofino Bay, Hard Rock Hotel, and Royal Pacific are all pet friendly. Many Lowe's hotels, in fact, are pet friendly. It's kind of a corporate policy. However, there are things you need to be mindful of. There is a deposit. I don't know exactly what it is,
I
but
think it's
I believe-
150.
is 150
150.
plus there's an additional charge every night added to the room when you have a pet. You are limited in the rooms that you can have. And they do require a lot of documentation about the dog's vaccinations and things like that. They are also, I do not believe, open to exotic pets. So we're talking really dogs here. And maybe
Can't bring your giraffe or zebra.
I don't know that people travel with their cats, but
Teresa.
Swinkeroo stayed
Teresa
at,
would.
However, none of the
Stay at
hotels
Universal.
at Disney are pet-friendly. However, Disney does have a kennel on property.
I think that the cabins at Fort Wilderness have a pet-friendly area because I didn't think they
Not
were.
the cabins.
Right.
You cannot have
Is
an
that
animal.
the campsite?
The campsites do.
Campsites, okay.
The
I saw a
campsites do.
girl with a dog last time I was there. That's right.
I want to say something about. I'm going to do a full write up on this, but we put Abby in Best Friends Pet Care during the 7 and 7. I put her in, and I got to be honest. I struggled with it. I was emotional doing it. She's young. This was the first time, really. You know, she would stay with mom, but she's too rambunctious as a puppy. She's at about 40 pounds now. She's grown quite a bit.
Wow.
She was just 6 months old on the 30th. She's too rambunctious for mom right now. Until she calms down, my mother can't handle her. So, you know, I need a place to put her. So we put her at Best Friends. And I was nervous about it because it's not my family. And
That's the hardest, especially
You
the
know,
first time.
the first few days I was like calling up, like, how is she? You know, and going over there and checking on her and making sure she was okay, looking for marks. And I got to tell you, they did a brilliant job.
I'm
They
hoping
were-
that at some point we actually do a segment on them because we left our dogs there too. I think we make a really good segment. There's a lot of animal lovers,
We've done it
dog
twice now.
lovers who would get a lot out of.
I'm
I would
a
absolutely
new
love to
like
see that.
I got a dog in June, and so the first time I had to travel and leave was September for a wedding, and that was the first time I started researching the Disney kennel, the Best Friends, and so I'm very interested in that too because I'm now learning like what chains are pet friendly, where you can go, and
Right.
what Pete was talking about too about. The deposit too always trips you up because when I was driving back from Massachusetts for Christmas with him, we had to look up a hotel and we stayed there, but we forgot, and it said it was pet friendly, but we forgot to tell them we actually had the pet, so I had to call back and then like make another deposit for my dog.
I do need to let you know, though, I won't belabor this point, but if you're thinking about booking a stay at Disney and using Best Friends, during things like marathon weekends,
Yeah, it's crazy.
it sells out pretty
Holidays,
quickly.
All right, I don't want to spend too much time on that. We can come back to that in another segment, but Universal is certainly an option too. I wasn't originally going to include that in this discussion, but Universal is certainly an option staying off-site, especially not Disney. If you're considering, especially if you're considering vacationing at Universal, one of the things to consider there, the one thing Universal hotels do, or at least the three major ones that no Disney hotel does, is you get front of the line access if you stay at Portofino, Royal Pacific, or Hard Rock. As a hotel guest, you get unlimited front of the line access at the two theme parks. You do not get that at Cabana Bay, nor will you get it at the new one that's opening. What's the name of it? again?
Sapphire Falls.
Sapphire Falls. So Universal is certainly, but again, those price points are equal to Disney in most cases in terms of.
I think a really important thing that everyone has to ask themselves is do you see yourself going back to Disney again in the near future, or is this the one trip? You know, do you see feasibly financially? If it's that one trip, make it count. And my advice would be get the best place you think you can realistically afford.
That's a great advice.
If you're going to be back, then you're going to be back. You know, I mean, nobody can see into the future, but you know, like when I go, we go all the time. We're down here in Orlando, popping around with our annual passes at Universal and everything, and you know, we're not worried about it. We're like, oh, we'll just stay someplace, and you know, but we like to stay on property. But if we don't, we don't.
Well, you know, I'll give you an example that, you know, for me, in terms of making that decision when I go to California, when I go out to Disneyland. I have stayed off-site, and I think I've stayed at the Hilton, I've stayed at the Sheraton out there, and had perfectly nice experiences at both of them. Great rooms, reasonable access to the parks. The Sheraton in particular was awesome because my mom was in a scooter, and every time we wanted to go anywhere in the area, to a restaurant, they brought a handicap accessible van out.
That's wonderful.
That's awesome. That's really good service.
And then, you know, gave us the phone number. When you're ready to come back, call us. And they
That's
sent the
great.
van.
Wow.
And this was not an overly expensive property either. Very nice property, really well run. But all that being said, I like to stay on site.
I think Disneyland is a different animal, only because everything's within walking. You can walk to everything.
Yeah, I mean, in that regard. But for me, in terms of the feeling that I have about that, it's the same as when I lived in New Jersey and vacationed down here. Will I stay off site? Yes. If I have to for financial reasons or whatever, I will. But my preference is absolutely to stay on site.
Yeah.
I never, I was always excited to come to Disney World. I wasn't always excited to stay off site though. I'm just being honest, and I hope my advertisers forgive me, but I just got to be honest.
What's that bubble? It's that
Absolutely.
bubble that everybody talks about. It's like you're kind of leaving the real world, and you're
When I was a kid, we drove down all the time, and I think it was a financial thing. My mom's single mother, 4 kids, and my grandmother, and so we always stayed off site. So I didn't stay on a Disney hotel until I was 18 years old, and I got to tell you, like, I was blown away by the ease of everything, because one of the biggest memories I have as a kid is staying somewhere in iDrive, but I remember just being so close and taking like forever to get to the hotel. Like I could see it as a kid in the back seat, and I was like, I just want to get out of this car. So I don't even know what my mother or grandmother felt like at that point. So
Right.
It's another thing you avoid.
So I think the takeaway that I want to leave everybody with is that it is ideal to stay, in my opinion, to stay on site. But if for whatever reason you can't, there are a lot of really good options. Just do your homework. The Lake Buena Vista area has some great hotels. There are some great options over in Kissimmee. There are some great options on International Drive. There are some great options up at Universal. It's about seeing what you can afford, what's important for you and your family, and what makes sense. But there's a lot of resources out there, and I encourage you to check them out. But, the inability to stay on site doesn't mean you're going to have a lesser vacation. There are a lot of great options out there, and that's the point I wanted to make with this segment. So with that, we're going to end this episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back with you again next week with another episode of the Diz Unplugged. Thanks for being with us, everyone, and remember, stay out of the damn lakes.